It is Sunday night, April the 18th. Welcome to the Wise Guys Sports Show, episode 111. Yes, I did get the graphic right this time. It's about time I finally did something on my vacation. But let's actually bring in my co-host, Mr. Mike Martinez. Mike, how you doing tonight on our last show of May?
I'm good. I mean, you said April the first time, but now I'm just splitting hairs. You were on vacation. You got vacation brain. It's all good.
Yeah, it's I mean, considering it's like I had 9 days off and
Look
yesterday
at
was the
that.
first time I actually, well, if you count the weekends.
Well,
Um,
of course.
so it's So, like, yesterday was the first time I've got, like, on the dry erase board on my fridge, it's basically, like, my own personal to-do or honey-do list or anything, and there's only, like, 2 or 3 things left on that, but it's all, like, next vlog, next video, or podcast. I'm actually thinking of, like, maybe partially, like, retiring, the videos on my channel and kinda going to more podcast form through that,
Huh.
because of the issues with my camera. I might even be able to record at the office if I wanted to, and then this way I can mix everything, later, but that's something I can explore when we're off next week. But Mike, we got ourselves, I don't wanna say it's a loaded show, but it's a pretty straightforward show, and
Yeah,
it's something that we could actually have a lot of fun with tonight.
absolutely. As you see, I've ditched the usual big Rican hat for something far more important to me personally, as it is Subway Series time in New York. Mets Yankees.
As
And
I've got
for
as
once,
I've got
my team's
Leafs Panthers
not the
on.
butthurt one who lost out on a free agent.
Well, I mean, we've got a full event. We've got Subway Series. We had Battle of Ohio earlier today that did not go
Yeah.
the way of my hometown. We've had a game 7 in the NBA. We got a game 7 in the NHL going on right now. We had the final round of the PGA Championship that basically turned into a walk on
Yeah.
for most of the back nine. But we'll talk about that here later on tonight. So, Mike, let's get started here.
Let's kick it.
It's the three biggest topics in the world of sports from the last week. Get ready for the Wise Guys hat trick.
And we will start with the first game 7 that we had today. And now, as of a couple of hours ago, the NBA Final Four are set. We actually had the Eastern Conference set on Friday night, and then the Western Conference finished up today. And as we can all see, only one division winner gets through, and that was the Oklahoma City Thunder, turning today's game against Denver in Oklahoma City into a laugher. But we'll talk about that in a minute because that game was basically a laugher for various other reasons. Um, if you really watched it. But we had the Indiana Pacers as the 4 seed run roughshod over the Cleveland Cavaliers, eliminate them back on Tuesday night. We had the Knicks after Jason Tatum goes down, um, basically knock out the Celtics Friday night and turn that series into a 6-game essential laugher, making a victory lap without one of the best players on the in the world on the floor for Game 6. We had the Timberwolves knock out uh, Steph Curry and the Warriors earlier this week as the 6th seed, and they're making a back-to-back trip to the conference finals. The Pacers are now in back-to-back conference finals. The Knicks are making their first conference finals in a number of years, and then the Thunder are making only their second conference finals since 2016.
Yeah, it's definitely was not what we thought going into the playoffs. I very tongue in cheek picked a Cavs Lakers finals, only because I wanted to see LeBron walk off the Cleveland court with tears in his eyes. But that was not to be. But let's give a lot of credit to the 4 teams that are going to play for a chance to go after the Larry O'Brien Trophy. The Pacers, yes, they ran roughshod over the Cavaliers. Even their own coach, Rick Carlisle, even said the Cavs had a phenomenal season and they ran into us when we were hot. And that's really what happened. That and the injuries. You ran into a team that shot the lights out of the gym every night and played good defense. You're not going to win unless you're doing the same thing. And unfortunately for you and I, James, the Cavs just did not. As far as the Knicks go, I think the Knicks are going to win that series before Tatum got hurt. Because if you remember, Tatum got hurt in Game 4 as I kick one of Bobby's toys. Sorry about that. So you had them. Tatum got hurt in Game 4, which the Knicks won handily. Celtics come back and win Game 5 on their floor, and then the other night was just ugly.
With Tatum, I hate to kind of draw the comparison as a Celtics fan, but again, a ruptured Achilles on a non-contact injury, very much like what happened with Deshaun Watson in Cleveland last year, and Tatum is likely never going to be the same. He'll be lucky if he's ready by the start of the 2026-2027 season. I mean, he's looking at least 6 to 8 months before really he can actually ramp up his rehab. So he's not only, he's not only out for next year, there's a good chance he could actually not be ready until probably into the new year in 2027.
Very possible. And if we're talking about ruptured Achilles with guys that non-contact injuries, I'd prefer to use Vinny Testaverde and Dan Marino than that piece of trash that you just happened to mention.
But for modernization, absolutely. And remember, Marino also ruptured his in Cleveland Municipal Stadium on Monday night too.
That's true. Let's use Kobe then.
Okay, but if we go over the numbers, let's look at the 4 teams that are left here. Minnesota and Indiana have never won a championship. The Pacers only made 1 finals, and that was losing to the Lakers in 6 back in 2000. The Knicks' last championship was 1973. We all remember the last time the Knicks were in the finals.
1999.
1994.
1999. Tim Duncan's first championship. They beat the New York Knicks of Latrell Sprewell and Allen Houston. The time before that was 94.
Then Wikipedia.
It was a strike shortened year in the NBA.
Wikipedia lied to me then.
It's because Wikipedia can be edited by douchebags.
But Oklahoma City, we talked about the Nuggets. The only other team to actually win a championship here, Oklahoma City did win a championship. It was not in Oklahoma City. You got to go back to 1979 when they were the Seattle Supersonics. And the last time Oklahoma City was in the finals was 2012. Michael, who won the championship that year?
That would be the LeBron James-led Miami Heat.
For LeBron's first title. So we've got storylines galore here. We could have the Indiana-Minnesota finals where somebody's going to get their first, title, which actually would be great because you always love to see somebody get their first. We could actually end up going Knicks and Thunder, where somebody's going to get their first title in over 50 years, um, or the better part of 50 years. If you're the Thunder, going back to Seattle, which was a year after I was born. Um,
Or the year I was born.
yeah, but there's storylines galore here. So Michael, I'm going to actually talk about this on the sports note here in the next day or two. I've got most of the framework done. Um, can we go back to last summer or or really late in the fall here and explore the fact of the trade that occurred between the three-way trade that occurred between the Pacers, I'm sorry, between the Knicks, the Timberwolves, and the Charlotte Hornets. Um, can you ever remember a trade where all the teams benefited this much, this soon, immediately, where essentially players were moved? Because typically you got to go back and you got to think, maybe give it a couple of years. Somebody who's going to get the player is going to benefit right away, and then whoever ends up getting the draft picks or the capital in return. But let's also be honest, Carl Anthony Towns has completely changed the culture and given Jalen Brunson a dramatic and dynamic second option. um but there's a part of me that thinks, really, outside of Shy in OKC, has Julius Randle been the best player in the playoffs right now, not named Tyrese Halliburton?
I would say Julius Randle's been the best player in the playoffs, including Tyrese Halliburton. Halliburton has played really well, but what he has gotten is 1 through, I think Rick Carlisle is running a 10-man rotation. 1 through 10, the Pacers have been outstanding. And you're not going to beat the two teams the Pacers did without going 1 through 10 on your, including 5 guys on your bench. I will say this. Jalen Brunson won the Clutch Player of the Year for a reason. He is so good. And now you have to think, and this is, I'm going to say this a little tongue in cheek, but we're talking about teams that have either never won a championship or have to go to our infancy, basically, like literally not the show, you and I, for when they won. Listen, half the Knicks went to Villanova, so did the Pope. All joking aside, you're sitting there, you're looking at it, go, who's got an edge? Well, one guy's have the biggest Catholic on the planet, and the other one's got the MVP, if you're talking about the Thunder.
You got to admit. Go ahead. Finish your statement. But I want to go back to Friday night's closer for the Knicks.
This has been one of those playoff runs where you don't see a lot of it coming. Like, no one saw the Cavs going out in round 2. Other than me, I don't think anybody saw the Knicks going, or the Celtics going out in round 2.
Right.
No one saw Minnesota beating
the Lakers,
beating the Lakers in 5, and then handling for the last couple of games the Steph Curry-less Warriors as easily as they did.
I can actually see that they would have been able to handle Minnesota, would have been able to handle Golden State, because Golden State got really old really quick. To now we're talking about Steph wanting to come back, and I was watching First Take the morning after the closeout, and Steph Curry still got some basketball left in him, but I think his championship window as a member of the Warriors has officially closed now.
Think about it. His first ring is 10 years old.
Let me actually go back to the closer with the Knicks on Friday night, in Madison Square Garden. You had all the celebrities out. You had all the legends. Clyde Frazier out. Senator Bill Bradley was out. Naturally, Jon Stewart, Spike Lee. You had all the big names out there to be able to will the Knicks on, and again, without Jason Tatum just running completely out of gas and running the Celtics off the floor, to where really the entire second half was a victory lap and they could do whatever they want. I posed the question to you briefly, and we didn't really talk about it too much in our Friday morning rundown. But Oklahoma City, we thought was going to be one of the odds-on favorites for how great of a regular season they had, and they've got the likely MVP in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Minnesota might be the more fun team to watch. Indiana is certainly the most interesting. Um, but are the Knicks turning into the story that everybody is kind of hoping for out of these Final Four? Have the Knicks become fun, even with all the media attention, all the Stephen A attention and everything? Because this is a different Knicks team than we've actually seen in recent years. That they went out and they spent the capital and everything to bring Carl Anthony Towns in. They gave up the farm. They gave up DiVincenzo. They gave up Julius Randle, to go to Minnesota, and those guys are contributing. And we talked about both teams kind of winning with that end of the trade here. Um, and you got to admit um, Julius Randle now getting paired up with um, not only Anthony Edwards, uh, but Rudy Gobert. You might think that if a team was going to push the Thunder in the Western Conference, now with the way that they're constructed, it would be Minnesota for how slow of a start they got through the year, and the fact that they were a 16 that really honestly should have been maybe a 2 or a 3, where they should have matched up with them possibly in the second round instead of the conference finals. But the Knicks, for all the legends that we've had with the Knicks, could this be the Knicks' best shot at winning that elusive title since the mid 70s?
This is their best shot. And this is their best shot because if you look at the teams that have won in recent years, let's go back to 10 years. Let's go back to that first Warriors team. That was a guard-driven team that had guys who could play defense underneath and score when needed. You go to that Cavs team in 2016. Again, and I don't consider LeBron a forward. He's just kind of there. A guard-driven team with guys who could play defense underneath. You go to the 16 and 17 Warriors weren't even fucking fair because of what they did. Even that Toronto team, Kyle Lowry and Kawhi, guard-driven team. Who was their center? Was it Siakam or was it somebody else?
Yeah.
Okay, so you have the guy who can play defense underneath. This Knicks team is the closest thing to that we have seen over the years with Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns. But the thing is, what Thibodeau has done with that team has been absolutely remarkable. This is a team that you remember the Knicks of when I grew up, the Charles Oakley, Patrick Ewing, Oliver. Those teams, they were tough. They would beat on you. Well, this team will do that. And it's the first time in a long time the Knicks have had a team that would do that. Even that 99 finals team was headed up by Latrell Sprewell and Marcus Camby and Allen Houston. That was not a team that was going to play with the Twin Towers in the middle of the San Antonio Spurs.
Right.
So, yeah, this Knicks team, I think, has the best shot of those. I don't think the Pacers have enough to keep up, even with the Knicks.
I think the Pacers can certainly run. I think if the Pacers are going to win this, because I'm leaning a little bit towards the Knicks, but I want to say it's very close. I want to say it's about 60-40. It's not 70-30, 80-20, like a lot of people are thinking with the Knicks based off of their star power. But I think that the Pacers really kind of grew up in the fact that this is back to back for them and there's no fluke involved. I thought when they went out and they got Obi Toppin last year from the Knicks, I thought that was a turning point for them as they're now showing an advertisement for game 1 on Wednesday. And I hate the fact that there's now going to be 5 days off, before that series really gets going, because the Pacers are now going to be off nearly, I think they're going to have 6 days off before this game. But with the Knicks, what the hell is Bieber wearing? And that's why they're losing right now, is because he put his hands on the cup several years ago. We'll talk about that in the third segment. But I think Indiana's that has guys in the middle that can bang and bash on guys like Towns. They can get physical with Anunoby. I think Brunson against Halliburton as 2 of the top 10 guards in the NBA, especially point guards, is going to be very, very interesting. They're going to get theirs, but it's where does everybody else go from there afterwards?
Agreed. And here's the difference between what Karl Anthony Towns brings than what Indiana faced in round 2. Cat can play off the ball better than Jared Allen can. And I love Jared Allen. And I love Evan Mobley. Karl Anthony Towns is a different animal than either of those two boys in Cleveland. So I think that's where the defensive matchup's going to be. You got to see what Siakam and those guys, because Siakam's getting older. You got to see what they can do against a Karl Anthony Towns and an Toppin, and who's the and Michael Bridges, or Mikal Bridges. That's a different animal than a Jared Allen and an Evan Mobley, and especially a hobbled Evan Mobley. That is, I think, where the Knicks are going to make their hay in this series, is the fact that it's these guys against a front court that, number one, isn't hobbled, and number two, is a little bit more talented. Again, not that Jared Allen and Evan Mobley didn't help lead that team to 64 wins, but Towns and Bridges are just, if Mobley and Allen are here, Towns and Bridges are there. It's not a big difference, but it is a difference that you now have to accommodate for. And I don't know if the Pacers have enough guys on their bench that can help accommodate for it.
It's going to be very, very interesting to see, because, the Pacers can play well in Madison Square Garden, but they're very, very tough at home. And we've seen that through the first 2 rounds. But, just look at the coaching matchup. Rick Carlisle's got a title. Thibodeau is the guy that we always wanted to get there, even when he was with the Bulls. And just the talent got egotistical in front of him and never really got his shot to get his title. But you got Chris Finch against who I thought realistically should have been the coach of the year, in Mark Daigneault in Oklahoma City. You've got 2 greats in the East, and you got 2 guys that realistically have been under the radar for the last few years in the West.
Carlisle was the 2011 Mavericks?
Correct.
Okay. Because when you said Carlisle's got a title, and I'm going through the coaches in my head, I'm like, there's only one option here. Because the rest of them are pretty well known. Because after that, you had Spoelstra won 2, Pop won another, Kerr won 1, Ty Lue won 1, Kerr won 2 more. Oh, and get the no name from Toronto after that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lawrence Frank won. Was it Lawrence Frank that was the coach of the bubble Lakers?
So.
Yeah. So Jim, I got to be honest with you. The finals I think will happen will be Knicks Thunder. The finals that everyone wants to happen is Knicks Thunder, because you bring Shai come to MSG for those 2 games in the middle, and possibly a game 6. I will be honest with you. I think it will be a bigger story that realistically one player bought a championship to Oklahoma City when those 3 dudes couldn't.
I think that would be a huge story. Me personally, I'm pulling for Pacers Timberwolves, not so much for, the team to get their first one, because you'd love to see a team get their first one, but not at the expense of somebody who's also going for their first one.
Agreed.
I think the Pacers are young, fun, and can run, and I think the Timberwolves can certainly do that too. And if I can actually go back to the trade for one quick second here, just look at the similarities between Randall and Cat. Cat's 29. He's coming into his 10th year from Kentucky. He was the number 1 overall pick in 2015. Julius Randle is 30 in his 11th year, also from Kentucky. He was the number 7 overall pick back in 2014. So just how well this trade has worked out for both of them. And also, you got to remember, if you're Minnesota, Julius Randle is a free agent after next season and unrestricted, because he's got a player option. And then Towns is now going into just the second year of a 4-year extension he signed with Minnesota last summer.
Yeah, the Knicks and Timberwolves aren't going anywhere, at least for next season. If Julius Randle leaves, I think the Wolves will take a step back.
And
But
DiVincenzo's in the second year of a 4-year deal he signed with the Knicks in the summer of 2023. So they've still got him for 2 more years for added depth.
exactly, I like DiVincenzo. He's a great piece. But let's, game on. We'll obviously be covering for most. We will be on June 1st. We'll have who's going to be in the finals.
Correct.
Most likely by then when we come back on the 1st. But I'll tell you what do you say we get to topic number 2 here?
So we both talked about the NBA, but now we're going to open up the floor, and Mike and I are going to have very, very different opinions on this next subject. You know me, I'm not a huge baseball guy, but this is actually something that kind of transcends the sport a little bit. And there was a news report that came out earlier this week that MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred has now opened the door and lifted the lifetime ban on Pete Rose and the 1919 Chicago Black Sox, amongst others. Indicating basically you can't have a lifetime ban if those players aren't alive anymore. Um, and now you're actually it's not a shoo-in that they're automatically going to be on the ballot. They're going to have to wait a couple of years before they can go onto the executive committee's ballot. But Mike and I, you and I have very, very differing opinions on this, and I'd like to let you lead the conversation here for the next few minutes.
Well, let's start with the Black Sox. There is no unequivocal proof that the Black Sox threw that World Series. You can say what you want. Kennesaw Mountain Landis, who is from Kennesaw, Georgia, who's just up the road from here. You can say what you want about what people brought to you. At the end of the day, Landis was the first of many, but the commissioner works for the owners. That was made because Charles Comiskey was pissed he lost the World Series. And he lost the World Series because his players didn't feel like playing because he treated them like shit and didn't pay them. Anybody who watched or read 8 Men Out knows that for a fucking fact.
And it's not like the entire Black Sox team is going to get in. You're going to have you could have
one
Joe and one other guy.
It's probably going to be the David Strathairn played Eddie Seacott was a pitcher. Yep, and of course the DB Sweeney played Shoeless Joe Jackson. Charlie Sheen's character's not getting in because again it's Charlie Sheen and he probably did something illegal to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Having said that, I believe Shoeless Joe Jackson will be a first ballot executive committee election. But it says in the clubhouse there is no betting on baseball. The difference between Shoeless Joe Jackson, Eddie Seacott, and all the members of the 1919 White Sox is they didn't admit it. They didn't get busted for it. As if I remember correctly, there with the 1919 Sox, there may have been if I remember the movie correctly, and if it was true, there was a trial where they were found not guilty of throwing the World Series. And I could be wrong. I haven't watched the movie or read the book in a long time. Pete did it. And I think as a player, Pete Rose belongs in the Hall of Fame. For anybody out there who wants to put him in, that's your opinion. But then shut the fuck up about the steroid users. It's time. No, hold on.
Go ahead.
Hold on. Let me clarify. Pete came out and bet on baseball as a manager, where you control the game more than any one person in a game. He can say he bet on the Reds to win, but did he? So if you're going to take the torch for somebody who had ultimate power in a game for one side and say, oh, what he did was fine, put him in as a player. Well, that's on the door. As much as I can't stand these dudes who took the needle in the ass, they knew it was happening and they let it happen for this. Now don't turn your back on the guys who lined your pockets because you think you need to take a stand on something. Because the guy who let them all do it's in the Hall of Fame. Bud Selig's in the Hall of Fame. He fucking knew what was going on. And if he didn't know, he's as dumb as everybody thinks he is. He needed a way to get money back in the ballparks after the strike, which he helped cause. Don't hate on them now because you wanted money. You let it happen. If Pete gets in, it should be the plaque with an asterisk on it. And it should notate that he was banned for the remainder of his living years for betting on baseball. If you put that on the plaque, I'm cool. But it has to be there. I personally don't think he should get in. And it's not the morality clause I'm talking about. It's on the wall in the fucking clubhouse.
I can't remember who I was watching earlier this week when I was on vacation. I don't think it was Rich Eisen. I'm not sure if it was one of the ESPN guys. It might have been a CBS Sports guy, or I might have been listening to the radio. I can't even remember where I heard it, but it was a national source that actually said, because now what's going to happen is you're going to have the executive committee put together a panel for voting with this. And all you have to do is go out there and cherry pick 3 guys, because remember, you need majority of an 8-person committee with that executive committee. You need to go out and it's got to be 75% or better. You need 3 guys to go out there and say, no, Rose doesn't belong in. And if he doesn't get in on the first ballot, he's done. He'll never get in. He's officially ineligible on the ballots going forward, to where he might be named as like a commissioner poll or something like that 15 years from now.
Well, here's the question. Because they were never eligible to be on the baseball writers ballot, are they going to put them on the baseball writers ballot to start?
No.
Okay. See, because that is where you have the issue. Now, by the way, just because Major League Baseball made him lifted the ban does not mean he's getting in. The Hall of Fame has to allow him to be voted on. That is the one thing people need to understand in this. Baseball doesn't have the final say in this. The Hall of Fame has final say in this.
Right.
And there is a very good chance.
Yeah, the BBWA.
No, not the writers. The actual Baseball Hall of Fame has final say in this. Because remember, Pete also used to do signings that weekend, basically giving his fingers like this to the Hall of Fame. Do not be shocked until the current heads of the Hall of Fame leave or die. Pete may not get on the ballot. Because now if they're going to the what used to be called the Veterans Committee, if they're going to the old Veterans Committee, there are a lot of players who will not vote for him, no matter what they're doing. And the scary part is you're going to piss off 2 Hall of Famers in Johnny Bench and Mike Schmidt, but I don't think any of them give a shit. Right. There are a lot of people who will not vote for him.
I think, before I get to my side of this here, I want to actually go back to one of the 2 things that you had said here. I think the thing with Rose is that it was something that you didn't have a whole lot of and I'm going to bring the steroid guys into this here, where I said that you had me up until the last part. I kind of stole that line from an episode of Sports Night here.
Yep.
The issue that I take is that what Rose did was after his playing career. What those guys did was during the height of their playing career. So I don't think it's really fair to kind of equate the 2 of those. It would be like, I think the best way I can put with the issue with Rose, okay, I just got a notification on my system here. I have no idea what it was. Oh, somebody's trying to trade up for something with me on Warframe. What does he want? He doesn't say what he wants though. Never mind. I think it's something that, because of the fact that it's during a player's career, but it's off it in terms of their eligibility. Because once they move to the managerial side, it kind of takes on a different perspective because you might not actually have guys getting elected as managers unless, for that until kind of they've retired, later on because a lot of them did not have the fantastic playing careers to go along with that. Um, but it kind of reminds me a little bit of the Ray Lewis saga, because you had that cloud hanging over him. Some of the other players that you've seen in other sports that have a lot of controversy hanging on to them. What's the one that we think of first and foremost, immediately off the top of your head? Orenthal. What
Yeah, but
happened with him?
Orenthal was in already.
He was in already, and then there was a lot of talk of them pulling him out afterwards. Um, but again, it's something that happened well after the fact. Rose had already been retired as a player for a number of years, so I think he does get on the ballot, but it's going to be very interesting because, like I said, whoever's going to head up this committee, they just need to find 3 people to put on this committee, um, that say no, and he never gets in. Does he deserve to be in as a player? Absolutely. But the problem is that you can't really differentiate what he did after his career because he was a member of a franchise and it basically extends his body of work. So you have to take that into consideration here. I think Shoeless Joe absolutely gets in. Eddie Chicot absolutely gets in because there was a lot of evidence that show that Jackson never took the bribe. Chicot took the bribe and gave the bribe back even before the series was over, I think I read. The rest of
And he
those
pitched well.
yeah, and the rest of those players did take the bribe and kept it, until really kind of the courts told them, "Hey, you gotta give this back or whatever," and they accepted it, and basically, it was circumstantial evidence and Jackson was railroaded. So I think Jackson gets in. I don't think there's any doubt in anybody's mind. I think Chicada is gonna be a little bit more of a struggle, but I think both of them have much, much better cases than Rose ever will.
No, and see, here's the thing where I disagree with a little bit with the differentiation between manager and player. You have to remember, Pete broke the record in 1985 when he was the player manager of the Reds. He wasn't just a full-time manager until 1986. He was banned in 1989. You're talking 3 years. You mean to tell me a compulsive gambler didn't lay a bet when he was a player manager? Come on now.
Right.
Come on now. So while I get it, and the reason I made the correlation between the steroid guys is not so much because of cheating or what have you. It's if you're going to put Pete in now because the ban's been lifted because unfortunately Pete has left us. I understand that. But now what you need to do is you need to look at the circumstances under which these dudes were allowed to play while doing that. They knew what the fuck they were doing. Everybody knew what they were doing. But the guy who let him do it and didn't say anything until what, 5, 6, 7 years after the fact is in the Hall of Fame. I mean, I'm the first one to say we missed Mike Piazza being a first or second ballot Hall of Famer because of rumor. Half the people who didn't vote for him because of rumor all want Pete in the Hall of Fame. What does that say?
I think this is I think the committee right now has got to tread very, very lightly with this, because again, first of all, we're 3 years away from really anything happening with this,
Exactly.
but then it also opens up that can of worms for the steroid guys that basically were not banned. They've been blackballed and let's be honest too, for the fact that it was cheating, um, by the letter of the law. Absolutely. We just saw a reliever from the Phillies get broken off for 80 games earlier today.
Yes,
They're
Alvarado.
they're banning guys left and right. Had these guys actually been tested because they were the catalyst for now the test. Those guys get tested and basically they're sitting out 60 games, 80 games a full season. they don't have we don't have the chase, we don't have, a Baroid,
Steroid.
breaking Hank Aaron's record here, and then it opens up a very, very dangerous door now for those guys.
See, here's the thing, though, and this is what bothers me the most about the steroid era. Barry Bonds would have been a first ballot Hall of Famer because he still would have had 500 and 500.
Right.
Mark McGwire
Still
hit
would have
home
hit
run
500 before he started juicing, I think.
he would have hit 500 before he started juicing. Or if not, he would have gotten damn close. And we would have been having the Fred McGriff conversation about Mark McGwire.
I think Sammy would have been lumped in with that because I don't think Sammy would have gotten close to. I think he would have been hovering around 500. So he might have been like, do you actually put him in at 400 or something like that, or 450 or whatnot before it really became evident of him juicing, Clemens,
Yeah, the thing
same
about
thing. How much of that was him clean,
Clemens is another one who didn't need it. I will say this about Sammy Sosa, not defending anything he did, but if you look at Sammy Sosa pre 1998 and Sammy Sosa post 1998, he changed his swing. He actually changed his timing mechanism and his swing. And that is where the change happened. Remember, the steroids in baseball don't help you hit the ball farther because you still have to be able to hit the baseball. What they do is they keep you on the field. That's what they were used for. That's why you had guys like Bonds in their late 30s, early 40s playing 155 games a year. That's why Rafael Palmeiro wanted to make a run at Cal Ripken. That's why you have pitchers taking them like Roger Clemens to help recover and be able to pitch 5 days later. It's not going to help other than to help you recover at that point in time. Is it wrong? Hell yeah. But again, the guy who knew about it, he's sitting in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
You have a guy who's in there as a manager in Joe Torre, who 3/4 of his roster was on the Mitchell Report. He's in the Hall of Fame.
So if we had to handicap right now, we'll take the three guys here and go 100, 75, 50, 25%. Where do you think their odds would be, let's say in 3 years, with Rose, Jackson, and Chacot?
I think Eddie Seacott's 25%. I think Shoeless Joe is 75 to 100. And to steal a phrase he probably listened to a lot in his life, Pizza Pick'em. And it's sad.
I got to go Seacott 50. I think Shoeless Joe is 100%. And I got to say Rose might be at 25% for how many bridges he burned, especially in recent years, where the fact that the guys who are going to be voting on him are guys that have actually going to have been working with him through the years.
Agreed. And I think Pizza Pick'em because I think there are certain Hall of Famers who believe he should be there that have sway and are young enough in their advanced age that they can use that and sway guys. Because in a couple years, figure it this way. If you had 11 Hall of Fame members voting on this, the elder statesmen are now going to be Mike Schmidt and Johnny Bench and guys who played with him and know him or are friends with and were friends with him. It's Pick'em. It's Pick'em for Pete. I'm sorry.
Well, we've got 2-3 years to really discuss this. Whether this show is going to be around to be, to do that, time will tell. Let's see. But if this is 2027, we're still doing this in this style. At that point, we'll revisit that because it'll definitely be really up for discussion come that summer.
Agreed. And may I say, and of all the stupid decisions Rob Manfred has made, this is near the top of the fucking list.
I do agree with the decision, though. However, if we're going to get technical about it, you can't lifetime ban a guy who's basically not living anymore. If you're going to play it letter of the law, he does letter of the law.
I agree with you. And I'm not disagreeing with the letter of the law. What I'm disagreeing with is that, number one, this was probably the worst kept secret in all of sports. Anything, everybody knew Pete was going to get his ban lifted the minute he left us. But two, he was flipping about it. A press release, you son of a bitch. I can't stand him. I cannot stomach him.
But we shift from the diamond to the rink as we close out the hat trick tonight. Whereas in the NBA, we had a game 7 to determine the two teams to meet in the West. Tonight, we've got a game 7 that's kind of turning into a little bit of a laugher to determine the final fourth team to get in the East as the West is set. So we are now into the final few weeks of the Stanley Cup playoffs. And for the second year in a row, we're going to have a Dallas Stars Edmonton Oilers Western Conference final. The Oilers coming in as the two in the Pacific Division. The Stars were, I'm sorry, Edmonton was the 3, and then the Stars were the 2 in the Central Division. The Carolina Hurricanes eliminated the Washington Capitals in 5 games earlier this week, and they have now advanced to the East Finals, and they will actually take on the winner of the Toronto Maple Leaf Florida Panthers Game 7 that's ongoing right now. And this game got out of hand really quick in the second period as Florida has now gone up 3-0 on Toronto in Toronto heading into that crucial third period.
Is there a more tortured fan base in hockey? I'm not saying they don't deserve it. I'm just asking, is there a more tortured fan base in hockey?
You can't I don't even think that's really up for discussion at this point because, look at the 5 teams that are left here where I broke it down with the NBA. I'm going to do it with the NHL. The Carolina Hurricanes, the last time they went to the finals was 2006. Michael, what did they do that year?
They beat the New Jersey Devils, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. Actually, I take that back. They beat the Edmonton Oilers that year.
I'm sorry.
And
they beat the Devils
Lord,
in the East Finals
and hoisted Lord Stanley.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but they beat the Devils in the Eastern Finals, if I'm not mistaken, right?
The last time the Edmonton Oilers went to the finals was when?
Oh shit, the 80s?
Last year.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
And their last cup was 1990. The Dallas Stars, the last time they went to the finals, 2020.
2020?
Lost to Tampa in the bubble.
Mm-hmm.
Their last cup was 1999, the controversial state in the crease goal against the Sabres.
That's right.
The Florida Panthers, they're just the defending champions. And and if they hold on here, they get a shot to go to a third straight Stanley Cup final. The Toronto Maple Leafs, the last time they've been to a final was the last time they won the cup, 1967. And they need the period of periods to keep the hope for an all-Canadian final alive. As that official who got split open is back up on the ice, I think.
It's fucking hockey's. The fucking hockey officials.
Hockey players. Yeah.
Exactly.
You go for repairs and you get right back out there.
Is Les McCauley working this series?
No, I don't think he's working this game. I think he's going to work a couple of games in the West, I heard.
Nice. Let me put it this way. As a fan of a team that has not won a championship in a long, long time, I would hate to be the fucking Maple Leafs right now. You give up a 3 spot in the second period on home ice in a decisive game 7. Bro, your goalie needs to move out of the country.
Yeah, but keep in mind right now, Toronto's kind of playing with house money at this point because their starting goaltender, Anthony Stolarz, went out in game 3 with a neck injury and was actually carted off. There was rumor that he was going to play in game 5, and then it became game 6. And right now they've got Jonathan Wall out there, their backup for the last 3 games. The Leafs couldn't do shit the last few games, and then they pitch a 2-0 shutout in game 6 to be able to force this. And now you got Craig Berube, who we talked about last week. They've got to overcome something here to be able to keep that all Canadian final alive. Mike, you're probably not going to remember this, but the last time we had an all Canada Stanley Cup final was 1989. Can you name
I
the
was
teams
good.
that were involved?
89, the Calgary Flames.
That's one.
Was it Edmonton and Calgary?
It was
No.
those would be two West. So you've
Okay,
got the
so
Western Conference
Calgary
teams,
in the
not even
West.
the East.
That wasn't a Quebec Nordiques, was it?
The Montreal
Montreal
Canadiens.
Canadiens.
And that was the only cup that Calgary's ever won. The only other time that Calgary's been to the final was the 2004 season, where there's still a lot of people in Calgary that actually think that they won the cup because of that missed call on the Iginla goal in Game 6, and then they lose in Game 7. As Toronto gets on the board very quickly here, 2:06 into the period. I want to say it was Marner.
Nice.
So we've got a
Wait.
two-goal. No, it was
04.
Max Domi.
Max
They're showing
Domi?
his old man in the stands.
Nice. Is he sitting next to Edge?
Edge is in the front row. I want to say that Ty Domi was sitting a little bit further up, but we've now
That's
got
bullshit.
a game. And I
I'm
think
sorry.
if somebody's gonna be able to pull this thing off, I think it's Toronto with that core four firepower that they have. Although Austin Matthews has been very quiet in this series.
Yeah, and no disrespect to Adam Copeland. It's Ty Domi, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
I will say this about let me ask you this. That Calgary final they lost. 04. Who was that to?
Tampa.
Oh shit, that was a goal.
On Nikolai Habibulin. Or as a lot of people used to call him, Kabibulin.
Nikolai the Javi Bulin Wall. If I'm the fucking
or as Dan and Keith always used to say, it was the Jeff Dunham type line. It was Habibulin. Build up enough phlegm.
What are you, fucking Ahmed? Jesus. But yeah, I'm interested to see if Toronto pulls this out of their ass. I think at that point in time, you got to just look at the Panther. You got to look at the fucking Carolina and go, "Good luck, man." That means you put a 4 spot on a Florida team that was looking to go back to the finals. Yeah. By the way, with these here, I'll be honest with you. In my opinion, whoever wins the West is winning this thing.
I agree. I think there's something with Edmonton getting through, knocking out Vegas, and now the talk is Jack Eichel's contract is up. I'm not going to actually, again, I might have kind of changed my tune on Eichel here in the last few months with some of the stories that Steve Dangle and his crew have come out with.
He's a good dude.
Yeah. As Wool almost gave it right back on the draw. Domi's third goal of the playoffs, very good on him. But you've got the Oilers, who still have. This is going to be an extremely entertaining West Final, because you got the best player in the world going up against the guy who, quite honestly, in Mikko Rantanen, could be, as Florida literally just gave it back, just got it right back. So
Jesus Christ.
Just that fast. That was a knuckleball that I don't even think Wool saw it. But Mikko Rantanen right now is leading the playoffs in scoring, and we're going into the conference finals. He may not, if Dallas doesn't get to the finals. If Dallas gets to the finals, I got a feeling he could be the Conn Smythe winner, regardless of the outcome. He's been arguably the best player in the playoffs without question right now. Oh, bad goal. That went short side. How did that get through, though? But you got to cover up, Wool. That's a terrible goal. But can we we've got to talk about. Um, I'm not trying to sound homerish here. We got to talk about these guys right here. And as the President's Trophy winner, to go out in 6 games um, was tough. To lose in overtime yesterday in Game 6 uh, was heartbreaking. None of it mattered at the very end when it was reported earlier in the day that Jets all-star forward, um, and quite honestly, their franchise player, Mark Scheifele's father, had passed away very unexpectedly in the
Oh,
wee hours
jeez.
this morning, and Scheifele decided to play, and Dallas wins the game 2-1 in overtime, and Scheifele had Winnipeg's goal.
Ah, Jesus.
The handshake line was extremely emotional because the first player that he met was Stars captain Jamie Benn, who was rumored to get suspended for that game because he sucker punched uh, Scheifele in Game 5 and essentially knocked Scheifele out of the rest of that game. Um, but you could definitely tell that every single player and every single coach on the Dallas Stars stopped, offered condolences, hugs, handshakes. It went a lot further than that, whereas you would normally see a guy go through, good game, good series, good luck in the next round. Every single Stars player stopped and had at least 10 or 15-second interaction with Shifley. Just what a class act there. Um, and he goes out and he plays because he talks with his family. His mother said that's what his dad would want him to do. And that's why Shifley went out and said earlier in the day through general manager Kevin Cheveldayoff, um, he had to go out and play that game. I think that's the only reason he was on the ice yesterday.
No, I honestly believe that that is the only reason he was on the ice yesterday. Uh, I couldn't do it. But then to have your team's only goal and to lose like that in overtime, I will say I was going to ask you a question about being the number one overall seed and losing in the conference semifinals. Um, but yeah, that puts a different spin on it. And can I just say, for as brutal of a game as it is, you don't find many non-class acts in the NHL. Even Eichel, who was a fuck, and that was because of the way he handled himself with a team, not because of the way he handled himself with the players interacting with him. I think the only player you ever heard people really bitch about was Sean Avery.
Agreed, agreed. But I mean, the handshake line is still, I think, the greatest postseason tradition in sports. Plus, also you got the playoff.
Agreed.
Um, But the handshake line, I think the last time I kind of remember the handshake line not going, cordial or congratulatory. We all remember the legendary Avs Red Wings brawls back in the 90s.
Oh my god,
But
that
I
made
mean, if
people
you
hockey fans.
right, if you look at President's Trophy winners, you got to go back to 2013 for the last time a President's Trophy winner won the cup, and that was the Chicago Blackhawks. And then even before that, you go back to 2011, Vancouver lost in the finals to Boston. Detroit won in '08, and then that's been it since the lockout. The Jets go out in the second round this year. The Rangers go out in the conference finals last year. The Bruins lost in the first round to Florida in 23. The Panthers lost in the first round to Tampa in 22. The Avs lost in 21 in the second round. The Bruins lose in 20 in the second round. The Lightning got swept by the Jackets in 19, naturally when my boys won the cup, but that was the story that rocked the hockey world. Nashville goes out in the second round in 18. The Capitals go out in the second round in 17 and 16, both times to Pittsburgh. The Rangers go out in the conference finals in 15. The Bruins go out in the second round in 14. The Canucks win back-to-back President's Trophy, so they lose in the conference finals, and then they lose in the first round the following year to LA, who goes out and wins the cup. So winning the President's Trophy basically means that you expend all of your energy in the first round or two of the playoffs, and you have no gas left afterwards.
Well, basically, you went 0 to 60 for the entire season,
Right.
and you didn't have anything left in the tank to make a run. We just watched that, James.
And one of the other stories that actually came out of the last 24 hours, even though Carolina knocked out Washington a couple of nights ago, it was announced that Alex Ovechkin will come back for his 21st season with the Capitals next year. Whether it will be his last year, I got a prediction that let's see what happens. Where are the Capitals sitting by the All Star break? Are they hit? Or I'm sorry, by the first of the year. Let's give them till the Winter Classic. If they're in the middle of the pack, you know, does he actually finish out the season? I don't think he's going to get moved or anything like that.
No.
Does he, if they make another run like they did this year, does he come back for a 22nd season? It's all a matter of, because he's going to get 900. That's no problem. He's at 896 right now. Does he go to 925? Does he actually have a monster year and go to 950, even if the Capitals are dog shit, or they kind of have the season next year that we thought that we were going to have with them this year, that they were going to get all the records and all the individual accolades and not go anywhere. Well, this year they get all of it. They get they get all of the sauce and all the smoke, and then they run into a Carolina team that we thought was going to be here at the start of the season with all the free agent moves that they made. Um, Washington's got some cap issues coming up here very, very soon that they've got to start
Yeah,
about.
because they're not going to they're not going to move him. That would just be franchise suicide. They don't, if I'm not mistaken, the Capitals aren't one of those teams that have had higher draft picks that have players that you can lean on post Ovi.
Right.
So they're going to be at a crossroads. Never mind cap issues. They're going to be at a franchise crossroads that are just going to cause them to make choices that could bury them for several years before they come back. I'm going to use it like the Blackhawks, but not like the Blackhawks, because the Blackhawks dug their own grave with their off ice issues. This is on ice issues that they haven't tended to because Ovechkin's been so good for so long.
If you're a fan that actually follows teams or detests certain players, um, this entire series has got to be like your worst nightmare, because you've got the media darlings that everyone gets jammed down their throat in Toronto, but then you also have to remember you've got excuse me, you've got
Bless you.
Brad Marchand on the other side, who's now going to be looking to um looking to get to a conference final, except not in Boston. Do we ever think we were going to see that? As we've got about 13 minutes left in this, and Toronto's got to really start. They've got to stop playing dump and chase, and they got to fire everything in the net and hope something gets through. Um, I mean, this was this was supposed to be Toronto's best shot in a long, long time. And if this comes, if this ends in the second round after being up 2-0 in this series, um, holding serve, Toronto, I think you're going to see that core four broken up in Toronto. I think you're going to have to.
Yeah, I think you're going to have to as well. You're not going to have a choice at that point in time, because then the experiment to bring in veterans like who was the guy they took from the Islanders? That Toronto
Oh,
was
John
with the
Tavares.
Islanders with Tavares. Damn it.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I think we can almost kind of consider, at this point, was it really worth it here? I mean, the Islanders never really got their mojo. They went to two conference finals, which is further than Tavares ever really got to. If they go out here and Tavares ends up maybe coming back for one more year, unless he gets moved, because there's a lot of talk that if somebody's going to get moved, it's either going to be Marner or it's going to be Tavares. And my money here would be on Tavares, even though I think you can get more from Mitch Marner um, at this point. Um, but I also have to. I also kind of have to tip my cap to Dallas's goaltender Jake Ottinger,
He's
who
played good.
who's played phenomenal and outshined the who I think is going to win the Vezina Trophy, Connor Hellebuck. And Hellebuck on home ice, I'm sorry, on the road, only loses 2-1. It's about time he showed up on the road. The Jets lost all 6 of their road playoff games by a 26-9 margin. And game 6 last night was the only time that Hellebuck did not give up at least 4 goals in the postseason, and he
Oh,
was
he's dog
named
shit.
in 4 of those 6 losses.
Yeah, you and I have had the Connor Hellebuck needs to learn to play hockey on the road a conversation the other day. It's uncanny how good he was all season to really forget how to play goaltender on the road in the playoffs.
And just how good he was at home, and just what caused the light switch to just shut off, and then he had it up until, the goal in overtime. I wanna say, like, 9 minutes into overtime, in game 6 the other day, is that was an obvious hook that was missed. Um, but I mean, I think the Jets could be back. I think Cole Perfetti has got a lot of good, years ahead of him. Scheifele, because Scheifele was also kind of hurt, and he was targeted a lot in these playoffs so far. Um, is that another goal or was that a replay? No, it's another goal, 5-1. So Florida was Sam Reinhart will be basically that's the final nail in the coffin. So we're going to I'm going to be able to call this now as a Carolina versus Florida conference final. This is an old Southeast Division rivals rematch now with the realignment and everything. They're in separate divisions. Um, so we get to rekindle that, and then you know I I think Florida's getting hot at the right time. I think there's part of me that would like to see Carolina get through, but it's hard to argue against the champs. There's part of me that thinks that Dallas, as good as they are, I think the Oilers, with their offensive firepower, and also, you know, if their goaltending issues in terms of their injuries, if they get a little bit of rest because game 1 of that series doesn't start until Tuesday, I think. Um, I kind of like Edmonton in that series. I like Florida in 6, and I like Edmonton in 7. Even
So
even though
you're calling a
that
rematch.
would mean Edmonton has to win in Dallas in game 7.
So you're calling a rematch from last year.
And there's part of me that I think you're right. I think the champion does come out of the West. I would like to see Dallas, but there's part of me that also I would definitely like to see Edmonton, even though, again, my dreams of an all Canada final are dashed now.
Yeah, and that's sad. And we're talking 32 years now.
In 1994,
No,
yep.
no champ.
Yeah, we're gonna
93.
be we're gonna be going on 32 years by the time somebody has a shot for it if Dallas doesn't if uh Dallas gets through.
Yeah, and that's what's tough about it is that Canada's game has not had a champion from Canada in 30 some years now. Um, who was that in 93 that won it again?
Montreal.
That's right. Montreal wins in 93, and then the Rangers started the run of all American teams in 94.
And Montreal knocked off the LA Kings that year.
That was Gretzky's only trip to the finals with the Kings, right?
Correct.
Okay. The Wayne Gretzky, Luke Robitaille, Los
Yari
Angeles Kings.
Curry, Kelly Rudy. Yep.
Yeah. That's the jersey that guy had on when I sent you that text that day.
Yep. The original version, not since they redid the crest. One final note on from the NHL. We talked about um the Mammoth getting their name and identity last week, which again, can't wait for those jerseys and hats to become available. I will definitely be picking one of those up. But it was a video from a couple of weeks ago that I just finally got around to watching. Chris Smith's Aesthetics uh, announced basically kind of did their advanced jersey watch. And my boys, the Blues, could be getting a little bit of a new identity next year. They may have leaked a potential new logo. Um,
Really?
yeah, it basically it's kind of like taking the old 67 crest where the blue note was a little bit skinnier, but kind of
Mm.
modernizing it with the sharper edges on the current one. And I don't think they'd actually take that and put that on that jersey unless they want to tweak it a little bit. The Ottawa Senators are already rolling out prototypes or potential leaks for their third jersey for next year. But that's something we'll actually see. Um, because the draft being next the later next month, if teams are actually going to make some of these updates, um, they're going to have to do it soon because they kind of like to debut. You're not going to have the Blues not acknowledge a potential change with that and have them roll out that jersey unless they're actually going to put that on a third or whatever this leak was, and actually have them roll out this jersey and then change this jersey a month later before the start of the season.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
It's also a
Especially like,
little it's also a little strange with the way that the NBA and the NHL do that they have their draft within 2 weeks of of the end of the regular season of the end of the playoffs. So there's not a whole lot of time of a turnaround here.
no, there's not. It could be worse. Could be baseball has it in the middle of the season.
Right, but again, none of those players are gonna be eligible to be called up that year.
Some could have been. I mean, Skeens could have pitched.
Conceivably, yeah, but, um, it's not like you got extended. You're going to want to send those guys to spring training or even an extended spring training rather than, shove them right down in A or double A ball right away. I mean, that's where I don't really have an issue with it. Plus also some of those guys can go play since they've been drafted, they can go play overseas, they can play in Mexico, they can play in summer leagues, uh, you know, and things of that nature. Um, if they really, really wanted to, but a lot of them are in the building with the NHL and the NBA. Those guys, those kids are getting drafted, and then really, you know, they're not doing anything from June until probably like August
No,
when then
July.
training camps will open in September.
No, they go. Most of the guys who are drafted, remember, they go to summer league in either Orlando or Vegas or somewhere else, and they're playing with that organization. What was it? Was it 21 or 22? The Cavs summer league team won summer league championship.
Yeah,
Um,
but I mean that's typically only a couple of guys, and then it's some of your back end bench guys, or some of your for the
well,
Cavs
it's and
can't charge. Yeah.
considering the NFL draft is very long in comparison to the NHL, and really, let's talk about the NBA with that. NBA's what, 2 rounds?
Yeah.
Every draft pick goes to summer league unless they're foreign and can't get over here. That's who plays in summer league with those back end of the bench guys who play for like the Charge, for instance. Um, but they're playing. They don't go very long. You figure the longest time they have. You figure if they're coming out of college and they played in the championship game, that's the beginning of April. They play again by July. Um, but they also have the combine in there. They have workouts in there. They have other stuff. But then they play in July, training camp in August, September, and they're playing in there either on the roster in September, October, or they're playing for the G League team same time. So they got time.
So we're at 75 minutes. We're going to get out for halftime here for 5 minutes. We'll come back. We'll get a quick blast in, even though there's a lot of news that we can cover. We'll hit the translator and we'll get out of here. And we'll wrap up for the month and we'll talk about that here on the back end. So we'll see you guys here in the next 5 minutes.
See you in a few. And we're back.
As I was trying to upload a graphic for later tonight, so I gotta figure out how I can actually do that without it switching to that automatically. But as the Panthers are now up 5-1 with 3.5 minutes to go in Florida, and Toronto has already pulled their net down 4 with their season on the line. So 4 goals in the next 3.5 minutes with the 6-on-5 advantage. Um, Basically now keeping 1 defenseman back and 5 forwards, trying to put as much pressure as they can on. It does appear that, as Rogers Center is I'm sorry, uh, Scotiabank Arena is starting to empty out as the Panthers just put the icing on the cake with Marchand launching a 90-footer into the empty net, and the Leafs will come up short, and the Panthers are back to the Eastern Conference Finals for the 3rd consecutive year.
And the Mets bullpen gave up a 6 spot in the 8th.
Hey,
On
in
that
case
note,
you haven't noticed, and
let's
judging
get
by
to the
the
blast
attendance,
news.
you haven't.
Let's see what's in. Yes. Let's start with the women, James. And the WNBA opens its 2025, 2020. Well, really just 2025 because they're done before the first of the year, right?
right.
2025 season in epic fashion as newest member of the Los Angeles Sparks. One, my favorite, Kelsey Plum, goes off for 37 in the opener in her first game in LA. Sparks won that game, I'm guessing, right?
Correct.
And then came our favorite moment of the WNBA weekend as the Indiana Fever opened against the Chicago Sky and beat the fuck out of the Chicago Sky last night.
In more ways than one.
In more ways than one, including, I think, the moment every WNBA fan was waiting for as Caitlin Clark got a flagrant foul on Angel Reese. I will say this, Angel very classily handled that. I don't think it was a flagrant. I think it was a flop, but that team like assaulted Caitlin Clark last year, and she just smacked the shit out of her.
I think the officiating in that game was about as bad as Game 7 earlier today between the Thunder and the Nuggets. That I don't know how the fouls in that game were 19-19 between the Thunder and the Nuggets, where basically they let murder go. There was a point where Jokic and uh, um, I can't Aaron Gordon were fouled on 5 out of 6 trips down the floor, and nothing was called, and they labeled it all incidental contact, to where every single one. What in the hell is that? No, seriously, they've got the net emptied, and well, I'm sorry, in the Leafs Panthers game, the basically Toronto's kind of thrown in the towel. So they put the goaltender back in the net, and Florida's got the offensive zone draw. And I'm trying to figure out what this is on the ice. Was this blood that basically just got smeared and they couldn't scrape off? At this point, I can't figure out what this is. And it's like it's blood. It's
awesome.
And it's out closer to the blue line, so it's out by the point. So I'm trying to figure out where it came from. Was this basically the blood dripping off of that official as they were getting him off the ice for that point?
Possibly. I will say this: down 6 runs, Brandon Nimmo just had a 14 pitch at bat. Hey, gotta take where you get it.
But highly, highly entertaining opening weekend for the WNBA.
And is it just me, or is Caitlin Clark like give people funny looks and pop one from the fucking logo?
As the WNBA apparently is probing hateful comments made towards Angel Reese. Well,
eat me.
Yeah. Did you see that what somebody kind of did with AI on social media with Caitlin Clark afterwards?
What, when they overdub her voice with AI? I haven't seen it yet, but
Yes.
I want to.
It is.
I need to.
She's like, I fouled her because, I I shouldn't have fouled her because she wouldn't have made the free throws, but then again, she also wouldn't have made the layup, and
Oh, she's
she's got her own McDonald's meal, but um, she can only use the fries because she can't find the bag, and it's like it was just so much great shit. It was like
I will. The only AI thing I've been into recently is everybody remaking movie scenes with fucking babies. Dude, wait. The one I saw today was Clark Griswold standing at the window and an asshole emptying his chemical toilet into my sewer. There's a baby dressed like Eddie, and you see the baby mouth. Shutter's full. I mean, they've done them all. I mean, the other favorite of mine is Chris Farley as Matt Foley and living in a van down by the river. Oh my god. I don't know how David Spade kept a straight face in that scene.
I mean,
He really
considering
did.
that was live and sketch comedy, and the fact that of how long it took them to film Tommy Boy and Black Sheep because of those two.
Oh yeah. You should hear some of Rob Lowe's stories from Tommy Boy. Apparently Farley and Spade got in a fight over Rob Lowe.
That I heard, and I think Tia Carrere backed that up too.
Oh, she backed it up on Wayne's World, yeah.
Yeah.
And Rob Lowe said the last time he was in a blooper reel for breaking was when Dana Carvey beat the piss out of the hand in Wayne's World. Because
Yeah.
it had nothing to do with the script. He also said he enjoyed Citi Field when he was there during the Dodgers playoff run last year, and was asked about Yankee Stadium, and he kind of went, that brought joy to my heart, considering they fucking lost tonight.
So with the opening weekend, we've got Minnesota and Washington that started out 2-0, Indiana 1-0, Phoenix and New York 1-0. And Indiana, with that opening win over Chicago, has the best point differential in the league, even after one game, with a 35-point beatdown. And even though it's one game in, the Chicago Sky are dead last in the NBA in standings and point differential. Now, that's
Yeah.
certainly not going to last, but it's kind of nice to see, considering the skullduggery that went against Caitlin most of the year. Nice to actually
Yeah.
kind of see some just desserts, and I do actually like where she kind of called out, the officials nonchalantly, didn't go attacking them because of how big the win was, but saying, I don't know what they were looking at to upgrade it to a flagrant one. I mean, me personally, I agree with what a lot of social media and pundits are saying. It was one of the best flops they've ever seen in a WNBA game.
It absolutely was. Jim, interesting question for the WNBA season. It's one we really previewed it last year because I think of all the hype around that draft class coming in brought to it. Of course, your buddy Paige Beckers is in her rookie season now, being the number one overall
At 10
pick. Let's
points
see,
in her debut in a losing effort.
how many did she have?
10.
Listen, and she's going to be more of a facilitator at this level, I think, for her first year. She's not going to be leaned on like Caitlin was to score. But here's an interesting question. Where do the Phoenix Mercury go from here? It's the first time in how many years without Diana Taurasi?
I mean, they did get a win. They got a 22-point win over Seattle in their opener. I think Phoenix is going to be just fine this year. I still think I think still New York and Minnesota are the cream of the crop. Uh,
Dude.
you've got to add LA possibly into that mix, but I think Phoenix is they're definitely a playoff team. Are they a second round? Are they are they a semifinal? Because now with the expansion, they never realigned everything, so you don't have conferences right now. So you've only got you've got the 13 teams out there, so you're unbalanced until Toronto comes in next year, where you can split back into conferences.
Yeah. Man, how good would a New York LA final be if everybody's healthy?
you and I talked about it earlier. It's hard to believe that Kelsey's only 30.
No, I'm saying, but if everybody's healthy, Brianna Stewart and Kelsey Plum and what the hell is your girl's name again?
Cameron Brink.
Cameron Brink and Sabrina, and that's you want to talk about star power. Who did Brianna put into the seats last night? Did you see that block?
I did not.
Holy shit. Somebody tried to go to the hole in Brianna Stewart and she just said, like, fucking prime Shaq. Shoved it. I was like, damn, girl. You ain't got to hurt somebody like that. What's going on?
I take that back. They do have conferences for whatever reason. When you go to NBA, when you go to
Yeah, I was
standing,
going to say, I thought they did.
yeah, whenever and they only do this for some reason with basketball on ESPN is that they actually, when you immediately go to the standings, it immediately defaults to the conference, not the division. Which
Yeah,
is weird.
because divisions in basketball really don't matter because you're going 1 through 8 no matter what.
Yeah,
Um,
because you're going to have Toronto
But-
joining the East next year, which actually makes more sense. And then Cleveland will join the East, and then you'll figure out who that 16th team is to join the West. I mean, you got Vegas, you got Seattle, and also the other story, the big story that came out is we could be seeing the final year of the Connecticut Sun as has existed. Is that now they're looking to possibly sell and maybe relocate unless the tribe wants to buy the team.
Jim, why do I have the feeling that Cleveland hasn't been formally announced yet for that very reason?
I don't know. I think Cleveland is going to get the expansion franchise. I don't think they're going to move Connecticut to Cleveland for that reason. I think Cleveland is going to petition to get an expansion franchise outright. But I mean, you got Connecticut and a small look at any of the other markets out there. Seattle is the only team that doesn't have an NBA team with them. Minnesota,
Why haven't
Phoenix,
they moved?
LA. I mean, Vegas doesn't, but you got to figure Vegas is going to be the next item up for bids when the NBA expands the next few years, and they go to 30.
Can you not? I understand we haven't had Brother Willie on in a while, but you just literally took his exact line from when we talked about who was next for the NBA.
Yep, and that's why I did it.
I figured as much. I got to reach out to him. But yeah, no, it just strikes me as odd that it leaked so long ago that they were going to be in the mix for this, and that the Rockers were going to come again. And now we're talking about the Connecticut Sun, really one of the teams that you kind of shake your head as to why they had a franchise. Yes, they play at the casino, which is to bring some fans in. Yes, you're very close to Stores, which is the mecca of women's basketball right now in the United States. But you have the Liberty in the city. Why do we have a team in Connecticut? This isn't like New York, New Jersey with the Nets and the Knicks using that dynamic. This is the Liberty, who are in the Mecca, and a team playing at a casino. Why aren't they in Boston?
You know what? I was just thinking that. It's like if they are going to move, they're going to keep them in the Eastern Conference.
Call them the Banshees. Want to be Irish?
I mean, could they go to Boston? Could we be looking at possibly Philadelphia? Could they maybe move them? I don't want to say maybe put them in like Nashville or something like that because you're going from one hotbed in Connecticut then to Tennessee, which is another hotbed, but then you'd have to shift them to the Western Conference. And I don't think that works unless you're planning on doing that for next year, because you're bringing Toronto in to balance everything out as a second East team.
Yeah, there's a lot of things you can do. And by the way, I think Nashville after Cleveland would be the best place for them to go. They're going to call them the Summits, which I think would be awesome. You could probably even get Tennessee to say you can use the orange. So that would be interesting. But I honestly believe that Connecticut's going to move somewhere that hasn't.
Maybe not Nashville. What about Memphis and just kind of stay with keeping a team where your NBA squad is?
Yeah, I misspoke when I said Nashville. I apologize. No, I meant
It's
Memphis.
oh no, I don't think we misspoke. I think immediately our minds jumped to Nashville because of its proximity to Knoxville, but then we completely forgot about Memphis.
That's true. Yeah, no, they should move to Memphis. I honestly think that if you look at the cities that have had WNBA franchises since inception that have done well, LA, New York, there's always been a partnership between the NBA team and the WNBA team. There really wasn't one in Cleveland. I mean, remember, this is pre Dan Gilbert. And if anybody has proven he's in it to win it for the city, it's Dan Gilbert. So I think with Gilbert and the resurgence of the Cavs, this could have them be a success story in Cleveland. But everywhere else has always been there's been a partnership. Even in Miami, who you never hear about, it's still a partnership. Mickey Harrison's involved. Thank God Pat Riley's not, but Mickey
Right.
Harrison's involved. Houston, I honestly believe Houston fell apart because the Houston Comets won 3 titles and the Rockets haven't won one since ever.
I think
The
Houston
Sparks
was
were-
a fact of, burning out too bright for being that dominant and being unable to kind of sustain that after that dominance kind of fell off at this point. And then, that's where they end up. I can't remember if they moved or they folded, but again, yeah, if you look
folded.
at it, Connecticut and Vegas are your only two non-NBA teams, but the NBA's got a very big stake in Vegas with what they've run with the All-Star break in recent years. You've got that contingency with the Athletics going to be moving in there. You've got the Raiders there. You've got the Knights and how successful they've been. And it's definitely a commuter town. And it's certainly something that geographically works out better to put the team in Vegas in the summer than someplace like a Salt Lake City or a Denver. So Vegas just works because it's also something because it's such a commuter and tourist town. You've got a couple of hours free on an afternoon. Go catch an Aces game.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Remember, the Aces used to be the San Antonio franchise.
Right, the Silver Stars. Yep.
Yeah. So, could I make a tongue-in-cheek joke about a female sport in Texas? But I won't. Having said that, they weren't that great in San Antonio, and they get to Vegas. They bring in who they had. They have a good draft, and they bring in Becky Hammond. They got 2 titles.
Right.
So, so WNBA is always fun. We do love to cover it because we love the purity that these ladies play. And some of the dominance of some of these players is just off the charts. I think Kelsey Plum's going to have a massive year in LA. But let's move over to number 2, Scotty Scheffler. That was a joke. He was 1 under on 16 today when I saw it, and he was up 6.
Yeah, he goes 5 under on the back 9 yesterday. Goes from a couple of shots off the lead to 3 out in front. Bogeys 1, and it gets really tight to where he actually fell into a tie with John Rahm. I want to say like on 6 or 7, and then just completely opens up. Only wins by 5, considering he bogeyed 18. He basically did what he had to do on the famed Green Mile at Quail Hollow in Charlotte, 16, 17, 18, where it basically killed Bryson DeChambeau's chances, who was on pace to have the 54-hole lead, and then goes 3 over on the Green Mile, falls completely out of contention at that point. He started the day 6 back. I want to say he finished in the top 10, but it's now Scotty's 3rd major. And also, there was a story that came out late after he won that not only he, but Rory also had drivers that were earlier in the week deemed illegal, and they had to kind of go to alternate drivers. They didn't really sign a kind of conform. But again, it's Scotty's 3rd major, and we figured he'd had a lot more. But remember, Scotty's last major was Augusta last year, because he didn't play in the PGA afterwards because his kid was being born with his wife Meredith. So that's certainly a lot more important. He was in the hunt at Augusta last month before Rory won. And Scotty, it's also his 15th win on tour. And they said this right as he was walking up to the cabin to sign his scorecard. He's only 28 and he's got 15 wins. The only other players in the modern era in golf that have done that and also accomplished these many majors before they hit 30, Tiger and Jack. I'm not saying he's going to run those guys down, but this is a Tiger. I don't want to say it's a Tiger-esque run because he's not as dominant, but it's Scotty and everybody else right now. And there's a lot of guys that are going to win some tournaments and win some majors, but Scotty is always there.
Yeah, I don't think we're ever going to see what Tiger did again from 98, 99 through 2001 or even 2002, considering he won that.
The Tiger
He
Slam.
won the Open. Yeah, well, the Tiger Slam, but he also won the Open at Bethpage Black in 2002.
Right.
Which, having been on that course, insanity.
But I also think I don't want to diminish from what Eldrick did, but Eldrick was at the peak of his game. He was out hitting everybody on tour. He was the best putter. He was from 50 yards and in. He was lights out. Sometimes it was a lot of his mid irons that kind of gave him trouble. Scotty is complete all the way around. He's not going to outdrive everybody. He's not going to be. He might be in the top 10 in putting for the weekend, but his touch from 100 yards and in is just, it might be better than what I've seen Tiger do, even during Tiger's prime at this particular point. And just look at what Scotty's got to play against and the level of talent, whereas Tiger was coming up where a lot of guys couldn't, the newer crop, your Justin Thomases, your Zach Johnsons, couldn't really match where he was. And then some of the other guys that Tiger was, that were dominating when Tiger was coming up, they were starting to kind of fall off on the back end of their careers. Scotty's doing this at a time where he's got a resurgent Brooks Koepka. He's got to deal with the live guys coming over and kind of reinventing their game. DeChambeau is playing on that joke of a live tour, but yet he's actually been, within the final 4 or 5 pairings in the last 4 majors, and he's got one of them.
Yeah, the difference, and I'll give you the difference. The difference is Tiger's contemporaries, Phil, Mike Weir, VJ, Colin Mockery, Azinger.
You mean Montgomery, but yeah, I do. But he was a Mockery. Colin
you're right. I'm sorry. I've been watching way too much Who's Line.
I went actually out to lunch with my mom the other day, and Love Is a Battlefield came on, and the only thing I actually said out loud in the car was, "Hey, look, it's Ben Dakar."
I can't. But yeah, Monty, VJ Singh, Azinger, late term Fred Couples, Marco Miro won a major during that time. But
right.
Really, his younger contemporaries were Phil, Mike Weir,
David Duval.
Who was the guy with the sunglasses? Justin Leonard.
Yeah.
Who was the guy with the sunglasses? David something.
Duval?
Yes. David Duval, not the level what Scotty's dealing with. They're not the level of DeChambeau's, even Rory at this age. Tiger had a young Sergio, but Sergio wasn't there yet.
Right.
So yes, the competition was definitely a problem when it came to Tiger, but Tiger was a fucking brute, dude. Tiger was hitting the ball longer, and you think about the shot at Pebble Beach in 2000 when he won the U.S. Open, up the hill. Anybody who's played the Tiger Woods golf games knows that shot because you want to try and do what he did.
Right.
You can't even do it on the fucking video game. So, no, and listen, Scotty, he's going to be the closest to Tiger we see as far as domination and as far as wins. But again, different style of play. Scotty is, you're right, he's more well-rounded.
I like his
Tiger bludgeoned you to death.
I would like his chances at the U.S. Open coming up before too long. I'm not sure if I really like him over at the Open Championship next month. But I think Scotty's definitely got a shot at a career slam. I mean, he's got we all know that the US Open is the hardest one to win, and the Open is the most wide open to win because of the fact that it's links golf. But Scotty's got the two most pressure packed of the career Grand Slam already out of the way because he's also got the two green jackets already.
Hmm. Uh, Oakmont is always fun to play the Open. And where is the British?
I don't think it's Troon this year.
Royal Portrush.
Yeah.
So yeah, Oakmont's always fun with the U.S. Open. I don't think I've ever seen them play at Royal Portrush, so I'll want to tune into that. Um, but yeah, no, hats off to Scotty, big win, huge win. Let's get to Mr. Irrelevant and what he just did. Was it 256 million?
Correct. Over 5 years. Yeah.
How much of that is guaranteed?
I gotta double check that here very quickly, but it was the world's worst kept secret. Um, and we've been talking about this. It seems like we've been talking about this forever, Mike. We've already been talking about this for 2 years. It's 181 million guaranteed in overall guaranteed money.
That's not a terrible deal.
No,
If his cap hits aren't terrible, they can keep some of that team together. So listen, you go from Mr. Irrelevant to 181 million guaranteed. That's pretty fucking good.
and the fact that they said over his first 3 seasons he earned 2.6 million. So I mean, 800,000 a year for arguably being a top 10 quarterback, regardless of what the Niners did. I mean, he
Not even
played in a
arguable.
Super Bowl. He almost won a Super Bowl.
He came very close to winning a Super Bowl. And had it not been against Kansas City, probably would have won a Super Bowl.
Right.
Um, good for Brock. Just for the Mr. Irrelevant to this, good for Brock. Um, not to sound like this, but I hope the next quarterback drafted very late and leads his team to wins and gets paid like this is I hope it's Shedeur Sanders. I really do. And that's because I've started putting Browns gear on again.
You're not the only one,
Purely.
trust me. There's a lot of buzz in this town. I don't want to say just because of, coming out of uh, you know, mini camp and everything. A lot of guys back in the building and everything, in OTAs. Um, but it's now, regardless of the controversial nature of taking him and then everything that happened with the draft, it's now the healing process of the last 3 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a lot of people pointing and laughing and saying, I told you so, including us.
I mean, considering we talked about arguably one of the best trades that we can remember that all parties involved got, were benefited earlier in this show with the Carl Anthony Towns and Julius Randle trade. Um, and yet we're still actually we're now just starting to heal. We're able to start maybe pulling some of the bandages off the worst trade in arguably the history of sports, certainly in the modern era.
Yeah. And maybe the front office in Berea should take some notes from the front offices downtown. Because in recent years, both teams have made blockbuster moves that have benefited both sides. I mean, think about it. Utah had a resurgence after the deal sending Donovan Mitchell to the Cavs, and the Cavs have been one of the top three teams in the East since that trade. The Guardians sent Francisco Lindor to the Mets, and both teams have been to deep postseason runs since that happened. Uh, the Browns sent 3 years of their future, a la Sonny Weaver, to the Texans and became a laughing stock and a fucking hole.
Yeah, but we'll close up the blast here. Uh, we're off next week. And we'll talk about that here towards the, right after the translator in a few minutes. But next weekend, we've got the 110th running of the Indianapolis 500, and we saw history earlier today. Now, Indy does qualifying a little bit different, is that they'll actually have guys go out, and then the top 12 will actually go out on Sunday and be able to compete for the pole. And we have, for the first time since Teo Fabi in 1983, we've got a rookie on the pole for the running of the greatest race in motorsports, and that is Israeli and Russian dual citizen 25-year-old Robert Schwartzman ran off the pole position earlier this afternoon.
Great story. A rookie. I love it. We've talked about this, James, that the one of the few races I watched growing up was the Indy 500. My aunt and uncle would have their big Memorial Day parties. We would go down, and at different times of the day, the men would go inside because they'd be watching the race. And then toward the end of the race, about 4 in the afternoon or so,
Somewhere in there.
um, there would be no guys at all outside. We'd all be inside watching the last 5, 6, 7 laps of the race. I want to say I was there for when Bobby Rahal won his last.
In 85. Yeah, the only time he ever won it.
I was there for that. I was there for. Did Michael Andretti win in the early 90s?
I don't believe Michael won.
I know somebody came out of nowhere one year. I remember watching Castroneves won in the early 90s, if I'm not mistaken, because I remember watching him win.
Yeah, he had 2 podiums in Indy, but never won it.
Okay.
Best fit. His ironically and wait, that's how can he have 2 podiums where it said his best finish was 24th? Oh wait, that might be as an owner.
Oh, that's a different animal. Okay.
Yeah,
How many times his old man win it?
I want to say 3 because I know Rick Mears won 4, Helio won, Elio won 4, Dario Franchitti I think won twice, Tony Kanaan won twice. I mean, you know me. And it's been well documented on this show that next weekend, next Sunday, the 25th, between 10 a.m. and 5 p.m., I will not be reachable because this will be basically consuming my entire afternoon. And then immediately after, I got to turn around and I got the AEW pay per view that night.
I'll be in the pool.
Yeah, but it's the one sporting event and the one event I tune the entire world out for. I put my phone on airplane mode. I tell everyone if you call, text, or do anything to me, you're blocked for 2 days. Um, so yeah, I will not be answering anything next Sunday. But if you look down the starting grid now that it's been established, Schwartzman goes out in 232.79 to take the pole. Former two-time winner Takuma Sato will be in the middle of row 1 because remember Indy runs 3 wide on their rows, not 2 like NASCAR. And Pato O'Ward will be on the outside of row 1. Former champion Scott Dixon will be in 4th, Felix Rosenquist 5th, and my personal pick to certainly finish on the podium, but if not win the damn thing, uh, Alex Palou, who's basically dominating this season, will start 6th, so he'll be on the outside of row 2. Some other big names out there: Alexander Rossi, the 2016 winner and the last rookie to win at Indianapolis, will start 14th. Uh, Longtime veteran Ed Carpenter will start 16th. Um, Kyle Larson, the NASCAR driver, will start 21st. Uh, 4-time champion Elio Castroneves, as we mentioned earlier, will start on the outside of row 8 in 24th. Kyle Kirkwood will start 25th. As we remember, Kyle Kirkwood a couple of years ago had that horrific crash where where the tire went flying out into the parking lot on one of the final laps that we discussed on this show. Graham Rahal will start 30th. Former champion Ryan Hunter-Reay will start 27th. And then Marco Andretti gets into the field on a very, very back end, starting 31st. Colton Herta will start 29th. Marcus Armstrong will start 32nd. And very surprising to me as a longtime follower of the sport, Rinus VK will start at the very, very back of the field. And then there was also Joseph Newgarden, uh, Scott McLaughlin, and Will Power all failed their inspections. And McLaughlin for the Penske team, because remember this time last year we had the story of the controversy with the Penske drivers going 1, 2, 3, but also had rules infractions where they were docked points going into Indianapolis for testing violations. McLaughlin wrecks his car, and then Power and Newgarden fail their inspections, and now they end up getting moved to the back end to where they could not even qualify for the top 12 today and then get shoved outside the top 12.
Jeez. Nice weekend.
Yeah, especially for the Penske drivers on their quote unquote home tracks. So very, very interesting to see. Hopefully, Schwartzman, if he were to win it, I think he'd be the first rookie to win it. Uh, from certainly from the pole, because I think the only other time a rookie kind of got on the pole in the modern era, I think they were saying was 1951. Teo Fabi only ran 26 laps before his engine gave out in 83. Um, so a lot of storylines going into Indy next week.
Oh, absolutely. So before we get to the translator, the other reason we have off next week, and it's not just because it's Memorial Day, and it's not just because it's Indy. James, happy birthday.
You son of a bitch.
You didn't think I was going to You didn't think I was going to go the whole show without saying that, did you?
I was kind of hoping so, but
Shut the fuck up. But that leaves, so yeah, we won't be coming to you until June 1st. Hard to fucking believe.
yeah.
So before we go to the translator, I do want to say this because this is our last show before that. But as of a week from this coming Friday, so the day before, 6 days after your birthday, sir, I will be the proud father of a 24-year-old. Caitlin's birthday is the 30th, so hopefully I'll let her know this is at the back end of the show. But yeah, happy birthday, Kate. When we come back, you'll be 24, and I'll continue to get older at a more rapid pace.
And I know it already happened kind of earlier today, but now it's kind of official because they do it a little differently over in that house. But happy 13th birthday to my niece Natalie. Um, Today was technically her birthday, but they're kind of the household that doesn't really kind of celebrate until the time as opposed to the date. So as of I want to say like 8 o'clock, tonight, my brother officially has a teenager. I've got a niece who's a teenager.
Yeah, no, and I call the kids at the time of their actual birth. So Zach at 6:38 at night, Caitlin at 4:16 in the afternoon. So yeah, I do that. I'm that weird dad who does that shit.
I think I was somewhere around like 3:30, 4 o'clock or something like that in the afternoon. I'm certainly not that technical. I know that like either my dad, my mom, uh, I think my friend Jenny would actually down in DC. I think one year she got me at like midnight and 30 seconds, just to be an ass, and I love her for it. But
Oh yeah.
yeah, I since some of my vacation kind of got washed out with weather or things kind of, blew up. I I'm not saying I want to get away because this is gonna be extremely weird. Not only going back to work tomorrow, but it's also something that, off for 9 days. It's going to take me 2 days to clean out my email inboxes. Off Wednesday, work Thursday, Friday, which are two of the slowest days of the year, and then the 3-day holiday weekend. So like for me, when we go back on uh, next Monday, that's going to be the more. I'm sorry, next Tuesday. That's going to be, I think, the bigger culture shock for me because also
Oh,
again,
absolutely.
then you got the short week, and then June 2 is finally when I can actually start to see some normalcy a little bit here.
Stop it with this June shit.
I mean, maybe by then I'll actually have the mastery test that's blocked me in Warframe for the last 4 fucking days, that I'm, like, buying up parts for a frame that I know that can cheese this thing because none of my other characters, I think, can do it on their own. It's like, I'm about ready to, like, send a message out there. Can somebody use my account to get through this fucking test?
And here I'm waiting for points so I can buy the new head for my shaver.
I've already got the email from Nintendo about ordering the Switch 2, which comes out next week. But they said that we're going to start rolling them out as they become available, but you may not get this until after it launches. Like, I don't care where it comes from. I just want the fucking thing by Labor Day at this point.
Yeah, I got you. But James, there really is only one thing left to do now. It's time for band practice.
And this was the problem that I ran into.
Damn it.
I got to figure out a different way around this by the time we come back. By the
Okay.
way, for those interested, I believe that we will have another supercut. By then, I have to calculate everything up, but I think this might give us the 10th because we did not do one for the draft. We also did not do one for the Wiseies. So I want to say this is either 8 or this is either number 9 or this might be 10. So be on the lookout for that here in the next few weeks.
You want to just jump into it?
It's processing
Would
now. It'll be
you
about
shut
another.
up and just push the button already?
No! God! No! God, please, no! 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 No!
It's the Wisey Translator on the Wise Guys Sports Show.
I'm forever unclean!
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is the Wisey Translator. It is the best segment of the night because it is the last segment of the night. It is a segment where James and I give each other names inside and outside of the sports world, and the first thing that pops into our sick, addled minds is what we give to you here on the show. Of course, I used to go over some of the classics and the great hits of the Wisey Translator all the way back to its inception at the 2023 draft. But now, quite honestly, we just have the greatest surprise, in my opinion, of internet sports talk history, and that is the Chronicle. James, if you would.
I'm going to give. I was on a stand-up comedy kick, and I'll kind of explain why after the graphic goes up and Mike loses his shit, as he typically does. But I'm going to give full
Okay.
credit uh, to a former member of the Alan Cox Show, and that would be one Mr. William Squire.
Anything with the Alan Cox show, though, James, is quality entertainment.
But
So
this is apropos considering how many friggin' dating apps I've been on lately, and that's part of my goal for next week is to get some sort of date lined up for next week. Either
just don't
I
crit.
either going into the birthday, on the birthday, or maybe even on Memorial Day, considering I'm not going to be reachable a week from today. But yeah, who's how ironic is it that the one that I'm getting the most matches on is the one where the women, have to message first. So as Mr. Squire said, still waiting to actually, they have to message first. They get to talk first. So I'll get my turn eventually.
Uh, okay. So, James, we're going to go to the NHL tonight for your first name. And I'm going to preface it by saying it is not a player. But your first name in tonight's Wisey Translator is first row seat stealer, Adam Copeland.
I mean, it's nice to see what he's doing with his time with his, his little break, especially kind of coming back off of his injury. But yeah, he was at WrestleMania and Skydome for Hogan versus Warrior, and now he's there for this. You might want to extend that summer break a little bit longer, Cope. Um, considering because when you come back, you're gonna have to deal with the whole FTR turning on you thing, and eventually we know this is going to lead to him and Christian finally coming back together. Um, but yeah, you might want to think of a little bit better thing to do on your Sunday night, and certainly maybe not sit front row because now you got the longer walk to get out of the arena when the Leafs eventually choke in the playoffs like they just did again.
It's exactly where I thought you'd go with it, by the way. Should have let Ty Domi sit front row.
I'm actually just more shocked that that Beth wasn't with him, unless she was watching the kids or something.
Or she's smarter than him.
Yeah, because I think she's from upstate New York, so I mean she certainly would care a lot more if it was like the Rangers or the Islanders than him, or even God forbid the Sabres, as you know.
Nice.
So
Aren't-
my brother picked it up for me when they did the Buffalo trip last month, and you know he's telling my sister-in-law, he's one of those that actually likes hockey. I said, no, I'm even dumber. I'm a Sabres fan for the last 25 years.
Yeah, no, it's as bad as what I'm wearing on my head right now.
It, I realized that by the end of this year, I got to pick up 4 new jerseys. Mammoth, Islanders.
I want to see the hats.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely going to go for one of the hats, but I got to go Mammoth. I got to go Islanders. If the Blues get the new jersey, I'm certainly going to pick one of those up, and then I got to get the redesigned Buffalo head Black Sabres jersey,
Gotcha.
as that was, as we all remember, that was another classic one that I wore when you and I were in college together.
That was Dominic Hasek, right? Or was yours
Right.
blank?
Yep. It was the Dominic Hasek, Michael Pekka, and arguably one of the greatest names in the history of sports, Miroslav Chitan, but was spelled another way.
Mm-hmm. I remember Miroslav.
Michael,
Speak for me.
Your first name in the Wisey translator tonight is is kind of in your wheelhouse, but where you threw me a curveball and didn't go with the entity. Um, we're gonna go a little off the board. It's not a team that you necessarily follow, but it's a team that made a lot of noise here in the last couple of weeks, and that would be the Minnesota Twins.
Well, 13 straight wins will do that. But let me give you the Cleveland answer. The other shoe's going to drop.
The
The
fact
other
that
shoe.
the fact that they rattle off 13 straight wins and Detroit is playing such fantastic baseball that they are still 4 games out in that division.
That tells you how horrible they were at the beginning of the year. And a big 13-game winning streak will get you back in it. I was more impressed with the final 34 innings before today. They didn't give up a run.
Right.
That to me was more impressive.
I mean, pitching back-to-back shutouts is one thing. Doing it 3 games in a row, I
That's
mean,
almost 4.
exactly, and that doesn't happen very often. Yeah, they did drop, today's game. But, definitely um a great run by then. And then, we thought that Minnesota could be, would be in the mix here. We said on our baseball preview that you could have 4, certainly 3 teams in the AL Central above 500. And then we all were kind of on the fence with the Guardians. Some of us said that they were going to be a little over 500. There were people like me that said they were going to be a little bit under, but you're going to still have 4 teams in the mix. But we definitely knew that Minnesota was going to be one of those teams. It's just all a matter of Kansas City's kind of fallen off a little bit, but Detroit's been very consistent because while the Twins have rattled off 13 out of their last 14, the Tigers are 7-3 in their last 10 to kind of keep them uh, at pace. And right now, with their win, have mathematically the best record in baseball.
Yeah, it's Detroit's been on a tear as well. So, James, I'm going to finish tonight with you with a name that we also discussed earlier and you waxed poetic about, but I'm going to go there again. I want to hear some more about him. But, Jim, your name, the second name and final name for you in the YZ translator, is PGA champion Scotty Scheffler.
Far and away, I think the classiest player on tour. Um, and I want to say if it wasn't for Rory completely breaking down, to be able to see Scotty break down and then just let loose with a primal yell in front of the gallery after tapping in on 18, and just all the announcers, saying when he was up 8, I'm sorry, when he was up by 6, and he rolls in for a bogey 6 on 18, that he just won by 5. Um, the way that Scotty has the ability to kind of smell blood in the water and doesn't falter. Um, it's not the Tiger syndrome to where he's intimidating everyone else. Whereas Tiger would go out on Sunday and not necessarily blow the field away, but the field would fall away. Scotty is different, and this is what I think makes him the best player in the world, and deservedly so, to where he's been at or near the top of the world golf rankings for the last 2.5 years. Is Scotty, when he gets adversity, rises to the occasion and starts playing with these guys, as opposed to if he falls back, he's got that gear to be able to get back out in front even if others are playing great around him. Tiger was always the intimidation factor that if Tiger started to fall off, guys would never be able to capitalize on that. Scotty has that extra gear.
He does. I agree with you 100%. He has been amazing over the last couple of years. Probably would have won more majors had he not dealt with, a birth of a child, the whole arrest thing. So yeah, he's been really, really good over the last couple of years. What do you say we give me one and get us out of here?
Michael, your second and final name, we're going to go back to the diamond here. And whereas we talked about the highest of the highs with the Twins right now, we're going to go to some of the lower of the low. And we're going to talk about, I want to get your take on recently broken off Baltimore Orioles skipper Brandon Hyde.
I'll take scapegoat for 500, Alex. That front office did nothing to help him. You lose and trade away some of your biggest pitching that you have, and you fix it with Charlie Morton, who's 106. You have to expect inconsistent play from young players. If you don't expect inconsistent play for young players, you're doing not only those players a disservice, but you're doing your franchise a disservice. That is why the teams that win that have young cores have veteran leadership on that team. The Orioles don't have that because the guys who are considered the leaders right now, the Gunnar Hendersons, Adley Rutschman, they're young kids. You don't have a veteran presence a la. All right, I'm going to play a little homer here. The 2015 Mets were very young, but they had Curtis Granderson and they had Bartolo Colon and they had role players like a John Neese who had been with the Mets for a long time. Same thing with Daniel Murphy. So you had guys who had been through, and they had David Wright. You've been through the wars and been there for years. Baltimore really doesn't have that. I don't consider Santander that type of player. I think Cedric Mullins is still lumped in with those young players. And bringing in Charlie Morton to do it, you need somebody who's been there for a couple of years. You don't have that. It's so no, I he's a scapegoat, and I fully believe that their front office, including Angelos, is mind-numbingly stupid kid. Um, really have screwed that franchise away from being one of the top teams in the league.
And the fact that, they have the second worst record in the American League, only ahead of the Azerbaijan White Sox, and then they're only up 2 over the White Sox. They've lost 6 in a row. The Sox have lost 4 in a row, and the Orioles have the 4th worst record in baseball. They are already 11 and a half games out. But I think if somebody is going to be able to right the ship for, for being as underperforming as they are through the first 2 months of the year, I think Baltimore's got the capability. I'm just wondering, have they already dug themselves that much of a hole? Because with the talent that they have, yes, the pitching and everything moved aside, we didn't see this out of Baltimore. And yeah, there's part of me that's starting to equate this to what Toronto did a few years ago in the NBA with breaking off Dwayne Casey. It's is this I'm not saying this is gonna be a worst to first type thing, but is it kind of jumping the gun, not so much with the Cavs like what the Cavs did with David Blatt, but it's got a very Dwayne Casey kind of feel for me, that it's an instinct move right now to be able to do something to try and wake some guys up.
This is very David Blatt esque, mostly because, well, you got to remember, Blatt really didn't have the locker room when he was there, and that was sad. But David Blatt was not brought in to coach a team that was put together because LeBron decided to come home. David Blatt was brought in to coach Kyrie Irving and Tristan Thompson and the young players and try and build, basically to do what JB Bickerstaff did, and bring along the young kids to be a well-rounded team. He gets the best player in the world, and they go on. They do what they did. But what they did to this guy in Baltimore is criminal, in my opinion. It's criminal.
I mean, the O's, again, 4th worst record in baseball, 2nd worst run differential at -85. The only team that's worse right now are the Rawalpindi Rockies. Yeah, I'm sending them over to Afghanistan at this particular point. By the way, if anyone has not seen it yet, watch the American Manhunt Osama bin Laden documentary on Netflix. It is fantastic. It is
I've heard good
must-see
things.
television. It's because they talk with everyone. They talk with Leon Panetta. They talk with a lot of the aides. They talk with the analysts that found him. It was one of the best documentaries I've ever seen. Um, they talk with uh, General McCrae, I think his name was. They talk with Robert O'Neill, the guy who shot him. Um, but it's but yeah, it's we had a feeling that somebody was going to fall off that made the playoffs last year. We didn't think it was going to be Baltimore, and we didn't think it was going to be this hard at this point. Because
No,
the possibility of them kind of getting to 500 and maybe getting back into contention by the All Star break is possible. Coming back from an 85 run differential at this point, I don't know where that's going to pick up.
I think most of their problem is with their pitching. They don't really have much. If you really think about it, they're relying on these kids to outproduce a net negative. And unfortunately, in that division where the Yankees are still good, Tampa is still scrappy, the Red Sox are better than anybody thought, and Toronto is still a decent team, you're not going to do that. You can't outproduce where you screw up. But is it just me, or do you feel lazy with all this time off we've taken?
And it's going to get even lazier over the course of the next, yeah, I mean, 2 weeks before we come back. And then we start thinking about summer vacation. Yeah, so I think we've earned it. I mean, we've had a very,
We're-
very eventful and very monumental 2025 already.
That's very true. Why do I feel like we're in Congress?
Yeah, but we're living up to our standards and we're actually staying overtime as opposed to like trying to pass the buck off to somebody and then get out of town.
Very true. So we will see you guys on Sunday, June the 1st at 8:30. We will have a lot to bring you that night with the 2 weeks off. Everybody enjoy Memorial Day. James, again, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Enjoy that. I will, of course, bother you with videos of the child singing to you and other things next weekend, which I will have to do from Palm Coast because I will be in Florida starting Friday night.
No offense, but I think I'm actually looking a little bit more forward to the jovial um chaos that is the voicemail that my brother always leaves me on my birthday than what Bobby will be doing. Because remember last year's voicemail, I think I played it on the air.
You did. You did. I'm requesting the same.
God love you, Frank.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we will see you guys on June the 1st. Have a good one. And everybody, safe Memorial Day weekend. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Have a good one.